Hey everyone, Richard Taylor here. So we have some breaking Mac Pro news. I've got a few notes here that we're going to discuss what the news actually means. But first, as usual, I have to have a bit of maintenance going on. So I will be right back with you in like 2 minutes, and we'll discuss the breaking Mac Pro news. I'll be right back. Okay, that wasn't too bad. I think I'm getting faster at that. So, welcome to Final Cut Pro Radio TV Live. We got some breaking Mac Pro news today. Let's see what I can do here. Here's the breaking news. Apple's new Mac Pro to be made in Texas. Apple had a news announcement today. The latest generation Mac Pro will be manufactured in the same facility in Austin, Texas, where Mac Pro has been made since 2013. So that part is not that much of a surprise. Apple today confirmed that the newly redesigned Mac Pro will be manufactured in Austin, Texas. The latest generation Mac Pro, which was unveiled at Apple's annual Worldwide Developers Conference in June, will begin production soon. Those are key words. At the same Austin facility where Mac Pro has been made since 2019. So, will begin production soon. Apple has said, and they still have said on their website, that the Mac Pro will be available, it says, coming this fall. Mac Pro, coming this fall. So fall just started in the United States. It just started a couple days ago, actually, the official fall. So we have 3 more months to go for the rest of the fall time. So Apple says the new Mac Pro will include components designed, developed, and manufactured by more than a dozen American companies for distribution to U.S. customers. Manufacturers and suppliers across Arizona, Maine, New Mexico, New York, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Texas, and Vermont are some of the places you're going to get components. Now, the Austin, Texas place is the assembly plant. That's where they assemble the Mac Pro. They might do some manufacturing there, but this plant has been in existence since 2013. It did the cylinder Mac Pro. That's also where they assembled that Mac Pro. So Apple already has everything in place. It already has the pipeline in place. It has the location. It has the technicians that it need, the people on the assembly line. It already has all that stuff in place. I'm not sure how busy they've been since 2013. I'm sure they were busy in 2013 when it just first started, when the Mac Pro, cylinder Mac Pro just started. So this Mac Pro has 2.5 times greater components than in previous generation Mac Pro that are made in the USA. Tim Cook says the Mac Pro is Apple's most powerful computer ever, and we're proud to be building it in Austin. We thank the administration for their support enabling this opportunity. So let's see what it says. So there were some breaks given to Apple if they kept the manufacturing in the United States. There were some, because of the tariff situation with China right now, there were some breaks given to Apple if they kept the manufacturing in Texas. But the company, Apple already owned the manufacturing plant. They already owned that, so that's a benefit for them. So the fact that they said we'll begin production soon is interesting. So it's fall. Apple said the Mac Pro is going to be available in the fall. I've been talking about it for a while. I thought that we're going to see maybe the Mac Pro at the Creative Summit, November the 7th to the 9th in Cupertino, get some hands-on time with it. And it looks like that very possibly could be true. Now, what does that mean for Final Cut Pro? We don't know, other than the fact that Apple also said there'll be an update to Final Cut Pro this fall as well. So what does that mean? That means, like I've been saying all along, we're going to see 10.5 at the Creative Summit as a preview. It might be ready, but I'm thinking more along the lines like they did with 10.4. We're going to see a preview at the Creative Summit from Apple, the Final Cut Pro team, the Pro Apps team, and then we'll see the actual version, the updated version of Final Cut later in the year, December, maybe January. I'd be pleasantly surprised if we did see the Mac Pro, the Final Cut Pro at the Creative Summit released. So that's the breaking news for today. Apple's new Mac Pro to be made in Texas, the United States. I don't think it's going to change anything. They've already announced the price, $5,900 and some odd dollars for the base model. They're not going to be paying. They're getting an exemption on tariffs with China, which are in effect right now, because they're keeping the manufacturing in the United States. Like I said, the last Mac Pro was in the United States. I don't think that affected people's cost around the world. The actual cost, I think, is adjusted based on currency of the company, the exchange rates, not necessarily where it's manufactured. So I don't think that's going to change any. Well, I've got you here. Today, we released Final Cut Pro Radio episode 93. We talk with Serena Catania, Bill Davis, Brad Olson, Tony Gallardo. We chat all about Final Cut Pro, of course. We also chat about IBC announcements, the iPhone Pro, which I am now getting, the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit, Final Cut Pro 10.5, ProRes RAW, B-RAW, Apple TV, Netflix, vertical video, and much more. Final Cut Pro is sponsored by LumaForge.com, which it has been sponsoring Final Cut Pro Radio for years. They also sponsor when I go to NAB. So thank you, LumaForge, for that. Now, also today, it was announced that Alan Seawright is going to LumaForge. He says he's kind of taken Patrick Southern's place. Those are pretty big shoes to fill. And I don't know if your beard is big enough, Alan. Patrick honed that beard for years and years, didn't he? Yes, he did. What else is going on here today? Let me just check before I sign off here. Let's check on Twitter and see what's going on. So one of the things that I said on Twitter and Facebook is that Tony Gallardo is probably the reason that they're staying in Texas. Tony, a friend of mine, Final Cut Pro from Texas, and he probably had something to do with it. He said he did. So one of the things that was mentioned is if they're just announcing it now, is there time for it to be ready this fall? Well, they're announcing that they're going to stay in the United States. That's probably been something Apple has considered for a year or longer. They've probably been retooling that factory for a couple of years since they announced they're going to make a new Mac Pro. They had the prototype at WWDC. So that they're not just starting that now. I'm sure they have everything in place, ready to go, ready to start assembling. The parts come in. The parts have been manufactured apparently at all these different places they talked about. They'll bring them in, they'll organize them, they'll assemble them, and they'll ship them out 24 hours a day probably. Then first off, the Mac Pro is not a big selling item from Apple. It hasn't been since the original cheese grater. The last Mac Pro, I'm sure it was not a big seller. They still came back and made a Mac Pro for 2019. So I don't expect it's because of its expense and because most Mac users don't need something that powerful. It will not be a high selling item. I don't expect that at all. Speaking of the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit, if you go to the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit, use the discount code FCPX Radio19. That'll get you 10% off. Right? Yes, it will. Absolutely will. So if there's nothing else going on, I still am thinking that we're going to see 10.5 at the Creative Summit. Let me just bring this up real quick. I still think we're going to see 10.5 at the Creative Summit, Final Cut Pro 10.5, and maybe we'll get to see the Mac Pro. I wrote this article on FCPX TV. It's been very popular. It's been viewed thousands and thousands of times. Talking about will 10.5 be announced, released in 2019? I think it will be. And it looks like now they're going. I put on there, even if they release a Mac Pro compatible update in early fall, which it looks like now, since they're saying they're going to start production, I don't think it's going to be early fall. I think we're going to see the first Mac Pros maybe roll out in December. We're surely to get a sneak peek of one at the Creative Summit. You guys have been to the FCPX Creative Summit website, I'm sure, but we'll take a quick visit there right now as well. Well, let me go back real quick. Let me go back to... So my site, FCPRadio.com. There's the site, FCPRadio.com, and I have a Final Cut Pro FCPX Creative Summit page, which is just a kind of a skeletal outline of what's going on. There's a video that I did. Here's approximately the sessions. They're all there. And I have a countdown clock. So we have 45 days. That's 1 month, 1.5 months until the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. It's not that long. And here is, let's see. Now let's go here to the Creative Summit site itself. There it is. Coming up here, let's go to the Creative site. FCPXCreativeSummit.com, of course. It's the biggest Final Cut Pro-centric event in the world because it's all Final Cut Pro all the time. One of the main things we're going to do this year, we're going to Apple Park and campus visit. So for the first time in the history of Final Cut Pro Creative Summit, attendees will have exclusive access to Apple Park. So I'm going to Tim Cook's office. They think I can get there? Think I can get into Tim Cook's office and tell him to make sure he gives plenty of money to the Final Cut Pro team? I hope so. So that's the breaking news for today. That's all I came on here to talk about was the Apple Mac Pro to be made in Austin, Texas, and how it affects the rest of the timeline for the fall. I think it's going to be around the Creative Summit. I think we're going to see 10.5 if it's not released before then. And whenever the Mac Pro comes out, it'll probably coincide with that, but who knows? Who knows? 10.5 is not dependent on the Mac Pro, but it's going to run blazingly fast on the Mac Pro, as everybody can expect. I'm probably going to be getting a Mac Pro. I've been talking about it for a while, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to get one. But I will make my decisions based on what tests are for the Mac Pro versus, say, the iMac Pro. That would be the only other Mac Pro that I'd be getting. Either the iMac Pro or the Mac Pro, but I'm leaning towards the Mac Pro. I love the design. I loved my cheese grater. All right. No questions. Everybody's got answers, all the answers that they need. I'm going to stick by my prediction. We're going to see the Mac Pro and Final Cut Pro 10.5 between now and the Creative Summit. At some point, we're going to see a preview unless it's released. But since they said, once again, Apple has said the newly redesigned Mac Pro will be manufactured in Austin, Texas, will begin production soon. So that means the production has not started yet. So the fall has 3 more months. So I'm saying, once again, around the Creative Summit, as I always have said. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. So we have got, let me see here what we have. For these shows now, we've got, there we go. Now it's on this side. So for those shows now, we have got these shows, FCPRadio TV Live. We got over 38,000 views since the summertime when I started doing these a lot. I did them at NAB, of course. So that's pretty cool. I appreciate all that stuff that's going on there. I appreciate the views. This is one of them. So that's all I have to say today. My name is Richard Taylor from Final Cut Pro Radio. Tune in to Final Cut Pro Radio on FCPX, FCPRadio.com. Go to Apple's iTunes. If you want to follow along on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/Final Cut Pro Radio. We have a discussion group over there of everything we talk about on Final Cut Pro Radio. We're approaching 1.1 million downloads of my podcast that I have. That announcement will be coming soon. We're starting our 5th year in January. We started 5 years ago this coming January. No breaks. We've been continuous all the way through. We don't take breaks in the summertime. The summertime is the most difficult time to keep going with the radio show and these live events, but I kept them going all summer long. No breaks. I'll talk to everybody later. Thanks for tuning in.